Hi, thank you for joining me today. Welcome to the Master Control Annual Summit 2020. Today, I'm going to talk you through how we bring focus back to the MDR, IVDR. My name is Nicole Cannon. I'm the founder and CEO of the Cannon Quality Group. We are a leader in outsourced quality departments and focus on being the change in quality. Our primary goal is to digest the regulations to real-world sustainable solutions. Before I get started, it's a story I kind of want to tell you guys. As I was getting ready this morning, I was talking to my kids and they're watching me and what are you doing again? And I told them I was going to do a webinar for the Master Control Annual Summit. And they're watching me get dressed, fully dressed, right? So, and which is important. And they're watching me and they're like, well, isn't it on Zoom? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, doesn't it just matter like from here up? Can't you just, wear shorts and flip-flops? And I'm just chuckling. I mean, I don't know how many of you are dealing with distance learning, but it's a sign of our times right now what we're all working with. My kids know that they only need to dress clean from here up and the rest doesn't matter. So as much as I'd wish we were in person and I could see all you and we could be laughing together, the reality is we're on Zoom or we're in a virtual situation, and hopefully next time we'll be able to be in person. Before we jump in, I just wanted to let everyone know that I'm available to answer questions in the chat box during the live session. On that note, let's jump in. The pandemic gave us a delay, and a lot of us took a breath, and we were happy to have the extended time, happy not to deal with that added stress with all that was going on. But none of us honestly knew what was in store. And we were thankful to have time to progress, but we didn't realize that the last 7 months were just going to go by and not really have this extra time that we wanted for our MDR, IVDR plans. Then as reality hit, quite a few organizations paused on the work of transition, just purely out of necessity, focusing on business needs to survive through product pivots, stalls in their clinical trials, stalls in their manufacturing, people trying to figure out how to manufacture social distance, how to manufacture at all. Most organizations went remote. All of this created so much more load on the quality and regulatory people. I know everybody had increased burden and load during this time. Our whole world has increased. But I just want to talk to you today as a quality regulatory professional and know that I know that the shifts, the pivots, going to remote, fortunately, a lot of you are on master control, and hopefully you already were. Maybe some of you made that transition during this time. There was a lot to shift and manage as a quality regulatory resource. And now we still have this MDR. Suddenly, it's coming again. It's coming again in May, and those 7 months just went by, and I didn't have all this breathing room I thought I'd have. So how do we get back to focus? And then how do we get back to focus when we have a moving target? How do I plan when I still don't know what's happening? A lot of businesses are still pivoting. It hasn't settled. Some of the pivots have settled, but they're still happening. CEOs and leaders are still trying to figure out what the organization is going to look like. What's the strategy? Product strategies are changing. Are the distributors and economic operators that we were planning to work with in Europe, are they still around? And what are their plans for the future? That creates a lot of volatility. We have EUA plans in the US that a lot of our organizations pivoted to support. And now are we planning to launch those also in Europe? So there's a lot of questions, and I'm finding myself and colleagues and friends just kind of standing around figuring out how do we get back to making this important and planning for it. So what I want to talk about today are 4 strategies that help us get unstuck and moving forward. I'm not going to dive deep into the MDR and IVDR. We've all read it. We've fallen asleep to it. What we're going to do is just focus on the next steps to get us moving back to it. My first priority is to start talking about significant change and the definition of it and bringing that back into the hygiene of our thoughts. I want to start talking about that with management and our peers. I want to have engaging conversations so that my peers know, because they're my allies, as they're in conversations and with changes, that they're able to raise a flag and bring it up or come question it. So the more I can create some dialogue around what significant change means, the better our whole organization is going to be able to make this change together. There's the basic ones that aren't much different from what we already were used to exercising the muscle on. There's some details under it, so I'm not going to dive into them. Go back to the MDCG 2020. There's details in there around what would be considered a significant change. These 5 categories: intended purpose, design or performance specification, software, we know that's going to be a new one for them, materials, and sterilization and packaging. Those are standard places where we're kind of comfortable, our organizations are comfortable with what's a significant change and knowing that, but getting them back into the muscle, right? Because, the last 7 months, we haven't really been thinking about this. More importantly, I want you to think about those changes that aren't very common, but in this world today are actually more and more common. They're in more detail on the IIF-MD, section 9.6. And these 5, I think, are really key to be thinking about and helping people remember that these are significant changes that would affect our strategy in Europe. New ownership. These things are happening right now, just trying to survive through the pandemic. Extension of manufacturing or design control, trying to figure out how to make room for people social distance with new facility or line changes. Significant modifications to special processes. A lot of organizations are bringing special processes in or taking them back out. Cleaning processes, sterilization processes, for an example. And then, of course, the change to authority of the management rep. These are newer. Maybe not newer, but not as common. So I don't think we exercise talking to our peers about it. I don't think management remembers it as much. I think these are changes that are occurring more often right now. We need to elevate into the conversation. I don't think we need to fear it in. I'm not asking you to do that. I think it's just time to be talking about it so that everyone's aware and we can know if our plans are going to be significantly different based on these changes. Secondly, revisit your plan. A lot of us had a transition plan and we were starting to roll it out. Now everything is kind of, the apple cart just kind of got stirred up. I don't know that everything on the plan is even applicable. So go back and revisit it or create it if you hadn't done that yet. Are the product plans, especially in the IVDR world, it's reasonable, it's possible you haven't created it yet. Are the product plans for the organization still applicable? Again, are the distributors and economic operators still in business, and what are their plans? We got a little more room and flexibility for starting clinical investigations and adopting common specs with the new date, but it didn't. All the timelines didn't shift. So we're going to revisit some of the timelines. I'm not going to dive deep into them. I'm just going to remind us of some of the keys. But again, what I want you to do is revisit your plan and make sure it's still applicable. And really, at the end of the day, it's the products. Are those products still where we're going? And where are we in the development? And are there new products I need to be more focused on? So for MDR transition time points, as a reminder, from the transition period now is 4 years from the 25th of May, 2017, and ends, as we all know, that extra year we got 26th of May, 2021. Certificates are valid through 26th of May, 2024. Feels like a lot of time. And then a reminder that any certificates issued prior to the 25th of May, 2017 actually become void on the 27th of May, 2022. So that's one date to remember. That's just a little bit further away from the transition period. And then May 27th, 2025, no more making available or putting into service devices covered by the MDD or EUMDR. We're going to touch on the IVDR. Now, the IVDR didn't get any more time, but a big change or impact, I should say, is that the MDR shifting forward a year now only puts a year difference between the MDR and IVDR. And I think that's going to create more strain for the already overworked notified bodies. The notified bodies are already under stress. A lot of them aren't transitioning. Some of them are still trying to. This pandemic created a whole nother stress on them, just like on us. So I think the IVDR, it felt like a lot of time, but it's time to start observing and looking and learning from the MDR people that are transitioned or transitioning and getting yourself ready. So your dates, May 26, 2022 is when your transition period ends. IVD certificates are valid through May 26, 2024. And then the 27th of May, 2025 is an end of availability. Third, I say start piloting. This is stop procrastinating, get a toehold, and just start working on it. You had your discussions, you've got your plan. Now let's start working on it. When I was in college, I'm a mechanical engineer, and we had a design project we had to do before graduation. And it was one of those things I just didn't know how to start. And I just kept procrastinating. And oddly enough, when I was procrastinating then, I started baking. I'm not a baker. I love cooking, but baking was not my thing. But I would start baking. Like this was, I had to do it, procrastinate with baking. So that's become my analogy now in my life. When I'm procrastinating, I don't have a toehold, I just say I'm baking a cake. I don't actually bake cakes, but that's my analogy. So I'm going to say stop baking a cake and start piloting. Start doing something to get yourself activated. I'm going to use Walt Disney's quote, the way to get started is to quit talking and then begin doing. I wish we could stop talking now and I could say, go start. We have a couple more minutes and then you can go start. I think to start, block some time. I think that's the first thing is we are getting taken, our days are kind of being taken away from us right now with all this going on or can be. And it's really hard to be defensive on your calendar. Look out a week, 2 weeks, a month, however full your calendar is and start blocking sometimes. Put a chunk of time on there. MDR transition timing, IVDR transition timing to start chipping away at this process. And then figure out what toehold is the best for you. Is it by starting to have those conversations of significant change or reading about the significant and reminding yourself, just something where you start exercising the muscle again? Or is it just digging into a product? Start with the products that have the highest revenue or are 80% likely to not change. Likely these, and management agrees, we're gonna keep producing these in Europe. So start figuring out the transition for those. Start with what's due in May, of course, that's easy. Also, I think to help yourself capture what's most volatile to change, the things that make you kind of spin around even starting on your plan, because you don't know if they're going to change, and just kind of parking lot that. Put that, identify it, say these I'm not certain about, and have them there, because at least if they're written down, they'll stop being stressful for you, and you can move on. And then I think another way to start is to start laying the groundwork for the new product. So start talking to your development teams around new products and what are the new pieces for the transition point that they should be integrating now so that you shorten your tail on the transition. You don't have to keep bringing it forward. So get working, get piloting, and then finally stay informed. In the past, I would say call your notified body, stay in communication with them, email them. Now, they're not loving that. So I think the best thing to do is, get on their blogs, get on their, track on their website, follow their webinars. If they're having courses, if they're having, meetings where they're open to talking and learning sessions, go to those, get as much information. Of course, your notified body is the most important. If you're going to change, go to a different notified body. But whoever you're with, follow what they're doing because they're all doing something different. They're all setting different boundaries, different transition requirements, regardless of what the regulation says. They're deciding based on their own limitations and resources. Follow the CAMD implementation task force. Look at their timeline. How are they doing on the timeline? Track implementation rolling plan. Where are they on it? Follow the EC updates. I can put these in the chat if you want the website links. They're releasing common specs frequently. In fact, on the 6th of October, they released the common spec for infusion pumps. Stay informed. Get your team to stay informed. And the more information you have, the better you're going to be to make this transition. And then playfully, rinse and repeat, but I'm serious. The best thing to do is, I think, keep going through these 4 steps. It'll help you exercise the muscle, get good hygiene. 1, just to go through them, communicate significant change definition frequently. go back to the MDCG 2020 and the IIFMD section 9.6 and refamiliarize yourself with significant changes. Start dialoguing with people about significant changes so you're comfortable and your peers are kind of your eyes and ears in other conversations, and remind your management so that they know, especially those ones that aren't common in the past, but very common now. I would say revisit your transition plan and revisit it monthly. So just set a part of your cadence to look at it monthly so you can get started and let go of having to have a full understanding of everything, and you can have room to evolve it as the business continues to change right now, that moving target. 3, start piloting. Get working on it. Start with the products that you know are going to stay and start laying the groundwork for the new products to shorten the tail in your transition. Now, if your team's overwhelmed or overloaded, shocking, no, I'm just kidding. As somebody who runs an outsourced organization, I don't recommend that you outsource this. I think it's really important that your team understands this and is comfortable with it. They're trained in it. And not until they're at that point does it make any sense to outsource these activities. So if you need, outsource other things so they have space for this, if they're overwhelmed, help them see where they can make room to do this also. We all need that help. We all need to understand, what can I set aside or how can I make room? So help your team, get them educated, help them make space, because you don't want to come running into this without that comfort. Because when the notified bodies come, they want this stuff laid out pretty easy for them to follow, since there's so much change to it. They're not going to leave room for much creativity. And this is somebody who likes to have the creativity in the quality system. They don't want that. So we're not going to pick that battle right now. We just need to understand it and be able to communicate it to them in the way that it's laid out. Most importantly, finally, stay informed. Track the European Commission, track your notified body, communicate with peers, and just keep evolving your perception and keep growing on this. Thank you for joining me today. Again, I wish I could see you all in person and we could be joking and have some time afterwards. I look forward to the time when we can. Thanks again. Stay safe and get started. Now, if you can rate this session by clicking the survey below, that would help us know if this is beneficial for you, if this worked for you. Thank you again.